past couple of days has been having me think a lot more deeply about the impacts of anticipatory grief. For the past couple of days, we've had a family member who is extremely ill, and at one point, and may still be true, at one point could have been so severe at the loss of life. And so this family member's spouse has been in active anticipatory grief. What is that? It's the moments where you're thinking about, what is life going to be like without my person? How am I going to feel? How are my kids going to feel? How is our family going to feel? How am I going to take care of finances and all of the things that I do as a partner? I will now have to do by myself, and how am I supposed to do that when the love of my life is no longer here? And I think a lot of times, I don't think intentionally, but the impact is there, that those of us in the grief space tend to either soften or gloss over or kind of bright side anticipatory grief. But anticipatory grief is traumatic. And it is a natural survival instinct to play out the possibilities of what that looks like. And then when our person gets better, then we pretend like we never thought that way. And we don't give enough acknowledgement and space to heal from that anticipatory grief, and we carry that in our body. It comes out in ways that we didn't anticipate. Another client of mine had something very similar to this happening. And so from that moment on, everything became an obsession of preparing for death. Nothing wrong with preparing for death. But when every action, every argument, every conversation, almost every conversation is about the preparation of death and what life is going to be like afterwards, that becomes its own obsession and trauma. I don't specifically have like a tool or a resource or, a thing to go to that is in one simple answer, because it's not. It takes time, like many things that we go through as human beings that impact our psychological safety. We can't just gloss over it, but there are ways through it. And I certainly I want to be a person who talks about the reality of grief, but also the hope of grief and the tunnel through the grief, if there's hope there. Instead of just glossing things over and making things nicey. I'm curious, as you hear me talk about this, if you've experienced anticipatory grief and then was expected to act like, okay, since that's over, now that's over, I'm done. Or if you have ever heard of anticipatory grief and maybe wondered, have I experienced that and have I processed that yet? Or maybe this is the first time you've ever heard of anticipatory grief and you'd love to learn more. I'd love to share more with you. I'm really curious to your thoughts. And, maybe if you have and you actually took the time to pause and acknowledge that period of time, what you did that supported you. I find that there are many different ways to navigate this, and it's finding the one that works for you. And I think that's in working with a grief coach or a counselor or a support group can be really, really helpful. Even if your loved one hasn't died, that anticipatory grief is just as valid. Let me know your thoughts.